Bruce. Uh-oh, we don't want a recording started. Okay, hi everybody. First of all, thank you for joining us today for the Curriculum Revalidation webinar. Our objective throughout this spring of 2015 is to communicate with all of our WAFC partner colleges to be sure that everyone fully understands what has happened with the Retail Management Certificate curriculum over the past 2 years and where it's headed. And here we go. So most of you are aware that the Department of Labor, or that we were awarded a federal grant by the Department of Labor, and that it was given to several partner colleges back in 2012. And we're really excited that the DOL had recognized the Retail Management Certificate as so worthy that they wanted us to scale it nationally to any college that's interested. And we're supposed to introduce it to the entire retail sector sometime in 2016. This means that we will have a nationally recognized certificate by industry in retail management. And so going forward, we really want to ensure that all of our college partners are providing the most up-to-date and relevant content. We need it to be consistent across the nation since it's going to be endorsed and recognized by our industry with an industry certificate and possibly beyond our industry to the National Retail Federation. Everybody who is on the webinar today is aware of this, and we have been discussing this since spring of 2013 at our statewide advisory meetings. Some colleges are up to date and up to speed, but most colleges still are not. So just a brief history is just to kind of remind us why we're doing this revalidation, and this is because all of the competencies that were founded, that the certificate is founded upon, are 15 years old now. And the Retail Management Certificate curriculum content was established back in the mid-90s based on competencies required for managerial success in the 90s. And we wanted to ensure that the program is relevant for people in the retail industry for managerial success in today's marketplace. So that's one of the things that the grant has afforded us the opportunity to do, was to review the competencies required for success and identify new or different KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities, for retail managers today. So we have revalidated the competencies, and we've actually done it again twice in the last 2 years, and we've entered into a curriculum review process after revalidating those competencies, which benefits all of the colleges because it includes up-to-date course outcomes, student learning outcomes, and makes everybody's program fresh. So the first question I have, well, I know that everyone on the college is familiar with the revalidation event, everyone on the call, and that we have requested you to look at the making updates to your curriculum. So I'm really asking at this point about where you are in the process to review and update your curriculum. And again, I know that the people on the call today include Maricopa Community Colleges and then Mojave. And so we'll wait until the end of the formal portion of this webinar to talk about your specific issues. But we do know that you've reviewed the updated curriculum and you're in the process of trying to move toward an 8-course model. Let's see, I skipped one. Let me back up. So this is what happened. The panel that met in February of 2013 was guided by a 4-year university provost who has expertise in competency-based education, and we included experts from the industry from 11 different grocery retailers and faculty from several community college partners, with the goal to revalidate the competencies and then link the revised competencies to course outcomes. this is a list of the revised course outcomes after the revalidation. And there were really only a few changes to these, but they were very important changes. And before our webinar today, we sent you all a link to the retailmanagementcertificate.com website, where in the section for colleges, there's a discussion, there's things you can download that talk about the course outcomes and the competencies and how we arrived at this new list of competencies. And then from that, also on our website, is information regarding the outcomes. But just a quick refresher, during the session with the group of experts, the group helped us confirm that the role of manager has become much more sophisticated since 1999. And while their recommendations are isolated, and the program does remain mostly intact, they did give us a few very important pieces of input. The first one is, and by the way, both of these, the intent was to make enhancements that would help accelerate students' learning and increase the certificate completion rates, both for colleges and the WAFC. So the recommendations would lead us to a specific 8-course model with updated outcomes for the certificate. The two areas that were impacted were the communications area and the quantitative area. And what you see here, this is a sample of the page in our documents, again, that you can find on our website, that shows how the competencies that were identified by the, as you see here, the competencies that were identified by the expert panel were linked to new course outcomes that were written. Course outcomes, student learning outcomes. I'm using those words interchangeably for the sake of this discussion. In the outcomes, numbers 1 and 2 relate to business reading and writing. Numbers 8 and 9 relate to oral communication and interpersonal skills. And then number 15 is about technology, using technology for business writing and also for PowerPoint presentations, etc. So what we see here is that we've tried to incorporate oral, written, and presentation skill competencies into one course, thereby eliminating the English and speech and combining both of those sets of course outcomes into one that's more relevant and focused. In the quantitative area, in the quantitative area, this is what that one looks like. And this shows us how the course outcomes for math, if you look here at the very first course outcome, it's all about the math skills that are needed to calculate interest, payroll, rate of change, discounts, markup, pricing, gross margin, and net margin. Obviously, this does not make up an entire business math class, but these are the things that were identified as required for success in the retail sector. So let me just look at the definition for you of financial management, which was one of those 15 competencies. The definition that was arrived upon by the expert panel with the provost who led the session is financial management, ability to apply math skills to calculate, interpret, and analyze financial information to make business decisions. Now, this is obviously much more robust than a basic business math class or a basic accounting, or certainly more robust in bookkeeping. The other ones you see here, numbers 3, 4, and 5, those relate to decision-making, business ethics, and adaptability. Number 1 is business reading, and number 15, again, is technology, using it for in this area. Okay, so in a perfect world, taking the information from from the expert panel and what we learned. There's a generic course list here, which would be the ideal 8-course retail management certificate, and it's actually in recommended course order. So they would start at 1 and end up at number 8, which is the retail management. As a part of this revalidation process, on a holistic level, we do need to connect with all of our community colleges throughout the 14 western states, and we're asking them to look carefully at these changes and update their curriculum, if at all possible, to ensure that their program is aligned with the core competencies and the student learning outcomes. So we're strongly urging courses to try to move toward or colleges to try to move toward the 8-course model, because these two major shifts in communications and quantitative areas will ensure that our students are acquiring the most relevant and necessary skills, knowledge, and ability in the most timely manner. So then we look at how does this impact our community colleges. Well, to achieve the consistency we're looking for among all partners for this nationally recognized certificate, we have a deadline of July of 2016 for each of our community college partners to look at their courses, look at the course outcomes, refresh them as appropriate, and demonstrate that their selected courses, whether it's 8 or 9, hopefully not 10 anymore, demonstrate that they've met a 70% course match, or a course outcome match with the WAFC. Now, going forward, just as an FYI, this means that new colleges who seek to approve the certificate, who are not part of the program, but as we push out across the nation, will only see an 8-course model, and when they establish the program, they'll be looking at doing it in an 8-course model just to start. To date, we only have around 15 community colleges in our current states that have already moved toward the 8-course model and have pursued this with the local and state approval process, but we're looking for many more to join us. Okay, so the next steps. The first, again, as you know, our primary objective is to get students, or to make this available to students so that they're gaining the most relevant, up-to-date, robust knowledge, skills, and abilities within the shortest timeline possible. We know, though, that not all colleges in the nation are going to be able to move to an 8-course model. There have been some states where there's just an ironclad line drawn in the sand that one class or another must be a prerequisite for these courses, and that there's no ability for a teacher to waive that, for an instructor to waive it. But, so we know that not all will be able to get to the 8-course model, but we still want all the colleges to complete a course competency crosswalk document that shows that even though you weren't able to get there, you do have all the course outcomes we're looking for. The course crosswalk form is available on our website in the For Colleges section, so with retailmanagementcertificate.com, and then going to the For Colleges section, and we've got the link pasted in the chat box. What we're asking everyone to do is to go through that crosswalk form, and I'll show you a sample of it in a minute, and complete it by March 16th, no matter where you are in the process of trying to move toward the 8-course model. But by March 16th of this year, we'd like to see where you are in the process. So then we will review that and see where everybody is and contact you to discuss what modifications you're trying to make and the timing around that. So I wanted to show you with the section, here's the main page of the website, here's where the courses are, or excuse me, where the curriculum revalidation content and all of the tools related to it can be found. Now here's an example, here's an example of the crosswalk form itself. Some of you have already completed this, others have not. So I've chosen to give you an example of the business communication skills for managers. This is the one that ideally is one course where you're listing, let's just say it's, Business Communications 229. So you would include Business Communications 229 here. And hopefully down at the bottom, in the percent match, you're at 100%. But our requirement is 70% or higher. So this is the same process you'll do for all of the courses that are required for the certificate. In this case, this is that Business Communications class. Now, I didn't show an example of the financial management and budgeting, but you saw an earlier example of what that would look like as a crosswalk document. Now we get to the point where we're going to open this up for questions and answers, because all of you are in a process of trying to move along this continuum. And I'm thinking that what we'll do is start with the Maricopa schools. Bruce, would you like to share where you are at on behalf of the Maricopa schools and trying to move us to the 8-course curriculum?
Yeah, we've already gone through the crosswalk analysis, and we took that analysis and looked at the current Retail Management Certificate of Completion for Maricopa. That current certificate had 11 classes, 23 credits. So in looking at the competencies required in the within the crosswalk, we were looking at, we want to get it down to 8, and that 8 was arrived at over a long, painful process, which is typical for Maricopa. That proposal has gone through to the Instructional Council for Business. It has been approved. As part of that process, in order to accommodate the competencies, we previously had in the old certificate a merchandising class. We dropped that out and have created a new class called Retail Management. Maricopa up to this point did not have a specific class listed as Retail Management, so we've created that new course. That is picks up several of the managerial competencies. It's somewhat the capstone course that Cherie was mentioning as available. So that new 8-course certificate is underway for putting through the curriculum process along with the new Retail Management course. The last step in this process for Maricopa in terms of what we need to change, and then the rest of it is basically running it through the bureaucracy. But the last step is we want to coordinate the Retail Management certificate so that it stacks into the Retail Management AAS, the Associate of Applied Science. So that is, a student can get the CCL. They now have 24 hours of the core of the Retail Management AAS, which is a 64-credit program. And so that is that stacking process. Those of you that are familiar with the completion agenda in the community college world, that process of stacking certificates together and then stacking them inside degrees, so to speak, that's a big push in community college land right now. Now, I want to address a couple of things that may be relevant, particularly, Candace, for Mojave. Our old certificate had a business communications course. The prerequisite for that business communications course was English 101, which is your typical freshman composition class. And another preference of the WAFC was to not have any prereqs. So we took out the business comm class, which means we could also take out the English class, the freshman English 101. And then in order to accommodate the crosswalk competencies, we put in a comm class, a communications class, which is, introduction to human communications, basically. And that class picks up a lot of the public speaking, presentation, and also some of the soft skills that a manager would require going forward. So, what are the principles and theory of communication, and then practical aspects of that. And then a lot of the what I want to call document writing competencies. Some of that will come from the COM 100 class, but a lot of that will come out of the other classes. So things like management and leadership, HR and business, utilizing the HR department. Those are other classes that will have a much heavier Word document type of workload for the students. So we're picking up those competencies across the entire certificate program rather than targeting specific classes to specific competencies. And that approach also allowed us to drop for the business and financials. The old certificate had both an accounting principles 1 or first accounting principles course, and also a basic math course of like business calculations or math concepts. Essentially addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and fractions. And we took out the business calculations course because we feel that the students will get those competencies in the accounting principles course, along with the financial reporting aspects of accounting, so debits and credits, creating balance sheet, profit and loss statement, cash flow statements, the typical financial accounting knowledge that all managers need to have nowadays, and budgeting as well. So in doing that, we were able to take the old 11 course, 33 credit program, skinning it down to 8 to 24 credits. And again, my final step here is linking up that CCL, which is being revised, to also revising the AAS, which is underway as we speak. The AAS revision will likely be approved at the next Business Management Instructional Council meeting, which is the second week of February. So at that point, for Maricopa, all of the selection of courses and creation of any new courses, in this case the new retail management course, all of that will be done, and then the rest of it is running it through our standard curriculum approval process, which is that we move it through the instructional council, it goes off to our district curriculum committee, and ends up, the very last step is becoming a board approved, or it becomes part of a consent agenda at the Maricopa Community College's governing board meeting, where it is approved. I'm anticipating that process will be completed by, cross your fingers, June, which means the new certificate would then launch for fall of 2015, and the new AAS as well, and that new course. So, assuming there are no gigantic hiccups, we will be on target to update our curriculum on behalf of WAFC by fall of this year.
Well, first, that's awesome.
Hooray! Hey,
that is awesome. Who else said hooray?
That was Jennifer 3 times over. I've never seen anything move so fast at Maricopa. Bruce, you have magic fingers.
You know what? 8x10 glossies work wonders.
Susan and Nance, do either one of you have any comments or questions for Bruce as this is moving forward?
No, if you want one of us to come and testify in front of any committee, just let us know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well,
sometimes numbers impress people. You never know.
Okay, awesome. So this is very exciting, and I can't wait for you to repeat this at our advisory meeting this spring. But now I want to turn it to Candace, and let's talk about what hurdles you might be having, Candace, to move from the 10-course to an 8-course program. And ask questions, too.
Yeah, I am focused on trying to combine the math and the budget financial management, because we've got the intro to accounting class and then we've got the business math class. So getting those into one, and just listening to Bruce, I was curious. So the class that is counting for all of that area is called Accounting Principles 1? Is that what the title is?
Yeah, it is an existing accounting course. It is part of the standard accounting sequence for the Maricopa School. For us, it's Accounting 111, Principles of Accounting Level 1, and
so you felt once you
again,
looked at it,
basically,
once you re-looked at it, because I'm thinking the way you were just thinking that, well, geez, the reason I added the math class is because of this, markup, markdown, or adding, subtracting, and you're saying you just view it as the students are going to, as a byproduct, get all that out of the accounting class. Yeah.
Essentially, yes, they have to.
Well, yeah,
there's in our accounting class. Some of the competencies in the Accounting 111, are going to be things like calculate gross pay, deductions, net pay, and record payroll entries. Well, calculate to me says add, subtract, divide, multiply. Analyze, journalize, and post business transactions using debits and credits, again, basic math. Prepare a simplified balance sheet and income statement, again, revenue minus expense equals operating profit minus blah, blah, blah. Again,
I'm looking under the competencies page for the crosswalk. It says discounts, markup, pricing.
Right, and in there we have, again, in our accounting principles class, we have a competency of inventory cost flow, which will require pricing, using perpetual and periodic inventory systems for a merchandising firm. That is in our accounting principles class. So again, students are going to have to look at how is inventory costed, types of costing, inventory tracking, which is perpetual and periodic, and then they have to calculate. They're going to have to calculate for purposes of the income statement, revenue and expenses, which is markup. In other words, we all know Walmart takes a $3 T-shirt from China and marks it up to $12. So, So again, I'm not going to have a course that magically, specifically lists all of those competencies, but in the accounting principles class, they're exposed to it. It's in the textbook that we use. Those examples are in there of, here's a business that bought milk for $2 a gallon. If they want to have a 30% gross profit margin, what do they mark up the milk to? That's a problem, and then that problem flows through to the income statement and balance sheet. So they're getting the math, they're getting those types of practical scenarios as well as the basic accounting skills.
Yeah,
and that's the way we looked at it.
I honestly feel like the same. I feel like the accounting class would cover it all, and especially after listening to you and the way our accounting class is actually 4 credits, and it's called Intro to Accounting, and I think that we could do that too and just remove the business math. That would.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that, Candace. They're going to get math inside the accounting. They're also going to get it, on secondary level, they're going to get it in some of the other management classes. They're even going to get it even in the technology class, which is, we're using survey of computer information systems or computer usage. Both of those courses require use of Excel spreadsheets. You put an Excel sheet in front of a student, what's the first thing you demonstrate? Well, how do you add this number in this column to that number in that column? So there's math skills in there. It's at a practical level, and it's not necessarily a specific competency in the course, but the course, that CIS course, says you must demonstrate facility with use of Excel. And nowadays in business, I mean, Excel is a big challenge for our students, I'll put it that way, but nowadays, going forward, Excel skills are assumed. I mean, we just had a panel here last September come in and talk about it from the industry, and every one of the people in the industry stood up and told our students, if you can't use Excel, we don't want you. So, you know, again, that the students are hearing that message. So you know, and again, I don't know what your curriculum process is, but you know, when we look at our competencies, I mean, you know, we then have to take those competencies and translate them into the day-to-day of what happens in a course. And in accounting, plus these other courses where they're having to apply critical thinking and things like that, or we're going to give them an Excel-based problem, it's, you know, they're going to get those skills. So
yeah,
that's the way
I think we could, I think that the intro to accounting that we have is robust enough that, and like, I'm being reminded that it's a 70% match. So even if I review our intro to accounting and I don't see specifically mark up or mark down happening, well, that's the only one that I'm looking at that would maybe not be covered in the accounting specifically. But that's still, you know,
I'm not sure who else was trying to talk. So this is Cherie. So Candace.
Well, let me just comment. I don't know in your.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, in our course competencies for the accounting class, I mean, again, one of the basic competencies in that class, it basically just says describe accounting procedures applicable to a merchandising business. Well, markup and markdown is part of that. So, I mean, it's not specifically, you know, I don't have a competency that says do a markup, do a markdown, but I have a competency that requires what would the accounting procedures be in a merchandising business. Markup and markdown would be part of that. And again, it's in the textbooks, it's in examples in the course. So, you know, that's the way we're looking at it, is that we, you know, I just don't see that we can, I mean, from Maricopa's standpoint, we can't drill down to extremely finite, discrete descriptions of the competency. I mean, in some cases, you know, we know that students are going to be exposed to these requests in the crosswalk document over and over and over again over several different classes. And that again comes back to that 70%.
One other thing that I always do, this is Nance Harris with my instructors, is I show them the competencies from WAFC. So then they're sure that they get into the class.
That's excellent. In fact, I was about to say, you know, we had a conversation in one of the previous webinars where their course outcomes didn't quite look like this, looking at this financial management and budgeting that we've got up on the screen. But they were going to go back, as you have to, every couple of years with each of your classes. You're supposed to look at it for course drift and whatever else you want to call it, but to refresh it. And so that was what we're urging them to do. Is this is very specific. We've got Bloom's taxonomy used in this so that it's apply the basic math, identify interrelationships, and as Bruce was saying, describe, et cetera, et cetera. So those are measures that we hope you can use to tweak this accounting class, for example, Candace. The other thing that I want to mention to everybody, very soon, in the next handful of months, there will be available all kinds of modules that can be inserted into these classes that were developed inside the grant by an instructional designer that was using our course outcomes, like the ones you see here for financial management and budgeting. And so they've created modules that can be used in an online or in-class environment to make the class come to life in a new, fresh way. And it might be very helpful for colleges that are struggling with how they incorporate some of these things. It will be available free to everybody to be downloaded. There will be links to it from our website. There will also be, it'll be up on an open source platform as well. So let's talk, Candace, about the
Cool.
English and business communications. Are we at an impasse there? I know that part of this was that you were concerned about financial aid not being available to the student, and that the business English was a prerequisite that would not be paid for.
Correct. That's what happens to students. If the course is not listed in the degree, financial aid doesn't pay for the course.
Candace, can I ask a question here? And again, I am not a financial aid wizard by any sense, but in the Maricopa world in general, if we have a approved certificate that says here are the 8 courses, here's the 24 credits in the certificate, and the student is signed up through advisement to be a participant in that certificate program, our financial aid folks are basically going to look for satisfactory academic process towards completion of the certificate, whatever those classes are. I guess I've never heard of financial aid having a course level requirement. Now I heard you say the business English is a degree requirement, is that right? But this is, I don't know how you guys work. I mean, Maricopa, we have certificates of completion which are anywhere from 6 to 30 credits. And then we have the degrees, which would be like the Associate of Applied Science, which is basically take the certificate and add in your general education, you know, math, science, English, blah, blah, blah. And now you have a degree. So I don't know if yours, I mean, again, as I mentioned, I'm taking this retail management certificate and it now becomes the core of the retail management AAS. And in the AAS, our students will have to take English 101 and English 102, which is your freshman composition classes. And that meets that requirement for the degree. So I don't know if Mojave has that approach or not.
Well, it's very clear in black and white. If the course isn't listed as a requirement, financial aid will not pay for the course. That's it. And so in our catalog, when you look at the retail management certificate, there is a class listed, business English. If it's not listed, it will not be paid for.
So let me...
The whole certificate or just that class?
Okay, so let me...
But what about the other classes?
They'll be paid for.
Let me interject. Wait, let me interject for a second. I think the bigger issue is if we're talking about the program being paid for through financial aid, the question is, can the business communications class stand on its own? Is there any way to remove English as the prerequisite for the program?
No, not in Mojave County.
So that's why I think Bruce changed theirs.
Yeah, we were able to take out the, I mean, it's a question of how much rigor do you want? You know, that's where we started looking at how do we do this. I mean, we have a business communications class. It's a 200 level class. The general assumption in Maricopa is that a 200 level class requires a prereq. And in this case, business communication was designed to be, you know, written, oral, presentation skills specific to business, or what I call business writing. And the prereq was English 101, but we took that out and then we put in just basically a comm class, comm 100, which is, you know, introduction to interpersonal communications. That class met a lot of the oral and interpersonal communication skills identified in the crosswalk. The comm class does not have a whole lot of write this document type of stuff, but they're going to get a lot more of that again in all of the management classes that are part of the CTL. So I don't know, Candace, if you have that kind of flexibility. I would imagine you guys have some type of comm class or
the comm
communication
class
classes.
we have.
Is that something you could look at?
Yeah. Oh, I have. Yeah, the communications class we offer would not match close to 70% of the competencies. It's not, it doesn't cover anything about business reports, nothing about PowerPoint presentations, none of that. It's in a totally different department. It's in the English department. So that class wouldn't work. And we're Mojave Community College with struggling enrollment numbers. I can't create a new class that's in one certificate. It will never get enrollment. Yeah. So I have to work with what I have.
Okay. Yeah, I agree 100%. I had that conversation with Cherie about trying to have classes that have a broad target market so that we get enough enrollment. We have the same trouble. Yeah. I feel for you.
Okay, I agree. This is typical of the conversations that we have in every state as we try to massage this. And I think we're probably at the place now where we feel at Mojave Community College it's going to end up being a 9-course certificate, but I'm excited that you think we can massage the accounting to get it down to at least a 9-course.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So this is exactly why we go through this conversation and this effort. And when we look at what you're going to do with the crosswalk for communications, you're going to have 2 courses. You're going to have the Business English covering those skills and the other one's covering, and then combined they make up the 100%.
Yeah. But and just one more thing to Bruce. I don't know if you guys know what Mojave County's like, but there are lots of people that do not know how to write or grammar, and if we don't, and that's why our classes at MCC have the prereq of either English Comp or Business English. If we don't do that, they end up in courses that the teacher in psychology realizes they can't write. They don't know how to write. And so we have a huge problem in Mojave Community in the county about this, the lack of ability to write at a college level.
Yeah, I share your pain. I mean, we have the same issue, and again, we want students to take the English classes as much as possible.
Okay.
So.
Oh, Bruce, I can't believe you said that. I was going to say we never have that problem.
All right, so we're still recording this right now, and I'm going to go ahead and say thank you to you all for participating in this, and then stop the recording, and we can continue if you have other questions.